Hello, my friends. Once more time, we are here in the Hacker Dojo in our traditional Fireside Chat of Fridays. And this time, really, I am very glad to have one of the most experienced people here in this group, that is James McGinn, that you has been here in the Hacker Dojo for quite a bit of time, and
yes.
I really are eager. Can you tell us a little bit who you are?
Yeah. Well, let's see. Well, first of all, my last name's McGinn. Not that matters, but I consider myself a scientist, and more importantly, I consider myself a theorist, and a theorist who has a good physical background. And I also consider myself, this is something I announced here at Hacker Dojo, so it shouldn't be any mystery to anybody. I got a few laughs out in the audience when I said this, but I'm the #1 expert in the world on the anomalies of H2O, on the physics of storms, and on the nature of atmospheric flow. And I say that because I've made discoveries along those lines, and the company I'm starting has to do with literally mitigating severe weather to try to make it safer.
Well, that sounds quite interesting and very complex. That is close to a meteorologist area, or is more into the scientists in how to forecast raining or forecast bad weather or things like that. That's interesting.
And funny thing about meteorology is it's kind of divided between the part where they do forecasting, where they predict that it's going to rain tomorrow, and the part where there's a theory on what causes storms, let's say, the actual physics of storms. On the first one, they're really good. On the second one, they're not very good. And that's kind of where I kind of fill in that I kind of made a discovery along the lines of what's going on with water. Water is a very confusing part of science. Academia is very confused about it. And it's because they made a mistake, a very subtle mistake. And once you understand that mistake, you can start to work out what's going on with water.
Well, that's quite interesting. And how that connects with being here in the Hacker Dojo? We are not too many people that are in that very specific fields, not only here and anywhere in the world. It's a very unique thing. How did you reach Hacker Dojo? What was your first point of contact? That's a good question. I get that question a lot. Shouldn't you be in Oklahoma or something like that? Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's some truth to that. But right now, I'm really just trying to get some. Actually, it's because the money's here.
Silicon Valley money.
Yeah, this is where the opportunity of getting a company started is really it's still the best place in the world for that, in my opinion. I know some people think there's other places now, but I still think this is the #1 place in the world for doing that.
I agree very much with you. And how you connect the first time, when that happened?
Well, I've been working on solving tornadoes now for about 10 years. But in the meantime, I had a different idea, an idea that was more software oriented. I refer to it as Jabrium. And Jabrium, I think of as a conversational interface for your computer is the best way I could describe it. And that was really the reason I came here at first. But since I've been working on this, and since I had so much difficulty describing Jabrium to other people, I still have difficulty with that, I decided, well, I have this solving tornado. I've been working on it for 10 years now, on and off. And I said I might as well go for it and actually try to get something going on that.
Well, and that's a good opportunity, and that's an invitation for the participants, the members here in the Hacker Dojo, in how to open that kind of conversations, because this is a particular subject that when you are talking of doing things into innovation, you need to talk with people that maybe never understand what that means.
Exactly. I need to be around people who at least have some understanding of that, at least have some perspective on that, and kind of also that know how difficult it is, because you really are very isolated. Anytime you're doing anything where you're going against the grain of what people believe, especially when you have all the groupthink in academia, you're very isolated because you get zero support from many of these people. They have no interest at all in actually examining their own theory very much, which is strange because they don't really discuss their own theory, which is really kind of a weird situation.
Well, that's a common problem that we have here, and we have some exercise and some workshops that we work, like the 3I, that is how you implement innovative ideas, that you figure out that you are against the people, and happens that when the people understand and figure out the value, that's the other way around.
Right. And I guess they say that's why it generally, I guess, if you do get success, you almost get too much. That's what I've heard. Not that I've ever experienced that, so that would be interesting. But well, I think one of the mistakes I made when I was doing it, I've been doing this, like I said, the solving tornadoes part for 10 years. I was trying to I made this discovery, and I already made a website about it, and I explained it and all this stuff. But it's kind of like nobody really cares about that, And I kind of thought that when people understand this little thing I discovered, that it would lead one to the other. But it's just not reality. I really underestimated the degree to which people just they just don't care about these little details and stuff like that,
Well, and that's very much true, and that is the kind of things that in a lot of conversations that we have in the Hacker Dojo is at the beginning is who is the first person that start to engage with you, and now how we learn how to do communications. I repeat several times and say any innovation starts with a conversation. A lot of people say is the discovery the most important part. Well, you need the discovery. But if you don't have a good conversations, nothing happens.
If you have a discovery that no one's interested in, kind of doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. And now, in your day-to-day here in the Hacker Dojo, what has been the most attractive experience? What are the reasons why you enjoy? Because I really see you coming here almost every day.
Yeah. It's an excellent work environment. I find here, especially in the mornings, it's really quiet. Really, you can really get a lot of stuff done. And then if you do feel yourself stuck in some way, you could always end up talking to someone, So, I've had a good experience here at Hacker Dojo. So I was here for about 2 years before the pandemic. Then the pandemic hit. And then I didn't come back after the pandemic until about 7 months or so, until that kind of thing.
Well, we're glad that you recall that and remember that and help us to invite people to. Then I guess in the Silicon Valley is a huge amount of people that have that feeling isolated, feeling that nobody understands about what are you talking about.
Sure. One of the things I learned over the pandemic was poker, so that's a good thing. And that's a lot of fun, that really is.
Yeah. And it's a good excuse to talk with people in a different subject.
That's right. And you kind of find yourself in a situation where you're, when you're in that kind of a competition with people, it is somewhat intellectual to some degree, and it's very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Do we have a question?
Yeah, your product has the effect of mitigating the effects of a tornado, and it doesn't have to be all tornadoes, just 1% or 2% of them. You can mitigate the effects. Your product is such that people have to be interested in you. Otherwise, they'll have to pay a huge insurance claim and things like that. It's a product they cannot afford to not have.
If you can repeat a little bit to keep that in the recording.
What he's saying is that my product, the idea behind it is to, really the biggest idea behind it, let me kind of expand on what I think you were saying there.
Well, we don't have to solve every tornado. If you just do 1 out of 10, people cannot afford to not have your product, and they're going to be, he didn't have that product. So.
Oh, I see what he's saying. He's saying in terms of like getting people interested in it, that one of the kind of argumentative tactics you can use is that to the public, you can say, hey, if your company isn't, or if your town isn't buying my product, there's something wrong with your town. You know?
If something goes wrong, you didn't buy it.
That's right. If there is a tornado, you can kind of say, well, look, you know. But, you know, unfortunately, my product isn't proven yet, and that's really what I want to do first.
Well, the
Yeah.
claims used to be hundreds of millions of dollars. We've seen that with these fires.
Well, here's the thing. Tornadoes they happen so fast. I don't know if we could get to them fast enough. But a hurricane happens 2 days ahead of time. You see the path. They even map out the pathway. Now, the thing about a hurricane, though, is it's gigantic. I mean, those things, they're literally as big as Texas sometimes. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that the direction they move is being fed by the vortices above, okay? And it's being fed by way of low pressure. In other words, it's in a sense, it's negative pressure that, like a vacuum cleaner, it's pulling it towards the jet stream. So if you can bisect the right vortices on there, presumably, this is all theoretical, right? Presumably, you could steer the hurricane. And you would steer it in the same sense that you steer a tank, right? When you steer a tank, you don't just turn the steering wheel. You stop the tracks on one side and the tank pulls around the other side. And that would be similar with a hurricane. You would steer it by way of interrupting part of the low pressure delivery system.
Yeah, and that's quite interesting. In some way, having that in mind, and it's hard sometimes to explain. And if we have people that comes here, then sometimes it's people that do not speak English as a first language, and they have some problems to communicate. They do not have the very clear ideas. That's common thing that in entrepreneurship is ideas are very foggy at the beginning. Mm-hmm. How you can give that advice to newcomers to this place, and they feel that, hey, I'm going to get and nobody's going to understand me, or how I get involved with the people, because sometimes we are so much focused into what we are doing,
right?
And appears to be not easy to talk with other people.
Right, we get lost in our details a lot, and what the product can do rather than what the problem is it's solving. And the best advice I could get for that is that if you're communicating and it's not coming across, it almost doesn't matter. It's not a matter of anyone's fault, but that has to be fixed. And it could be that your idea, no matter how good it is, just doesn't communicate. Or it could be that if you wait long enough and you work at it, you'll find a way to communicate it eventually. Or you'll find the thing that people attach to. And that's kind of what I've found is I've engaged some people in conversation about this. And every once in a while I'll say something, they go, oh, what do you mean by that? You know, and then you can kind of go into detail. But very often, it's very hard to get any mention of engagement at all, because it is so ultimately confusing.
Well, but that's one of the interesting things is we need to give the environment to people to feel free to ask, and if it's not well understood what they say, how to give them the freedom or the support to say, hey, I don't understand. Do you mean this? Or how to create that conversations. And with your experience and your knowledge in that sense, what could be one of the things that has been the most discover or trigger, ignite some of your ideas or some?
Well, I think iteration is the most important one. In other words, keep trying, you know. You throw something out and part of it people might get, and then later you find a different way to explain it. And then suddenly they get it. And but it really has to do with just kind of it's kind of repetitive, really, you know.
Well, and that's something that the people is afraid. Is sometimes say, I already say that. Why I need to do that again?
That will sometimes stop me. I'll go, you know, I did this already, but I'm learning though that it doesn't matter. Most people don't hear everything you say the first time, anyways. And so, yeah, you're right. Just keep repeating, and eventually they start to get it, and eventually you start to figure out the right way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the point that you say, some people do not listen or don't hear, or sometimes they listen but they don't understand at the very first time. When you are talking about complex ideas, you may use some words that are not very common or not very well understood at the first time.
And that's very true. And sometimes the obstacle is that people understand something in a different way. And those can be the most difficult of all because they don't really, they especially don't listen, you know. It's already hard enough when it's complex. But you have thinking that's been set in there and it's really strange too, because everyone will agree to it, but no one will be able to really identify why they agree to it, you know. And you can keep trying, but very often you just can't make any progress. Yeah.
And that is the point of collaboration.
Yeah.
Because it's very nice here when you start talking about things, how people approach you mainly when they hear things that they are not understanding, and they say, hey, what are you talking about? And new people that comes into the conversations help us to ask for repeating things that in some way we are jumping into different way of explaining or getting different ideas from other people that triggers a better understanding.
Yeah. And, you know, if you're endeavoring in that respect, you know, you're doing something that's not normal. And you're just out there and you're waking up every day at your apartment, let's say, and you're working on something, which I did for a long time, and you don't have any feedback at all. That's the worst of all. Yep. That's the worst of all. And it'll actually bring you to a stop. It'll bring you to a stop to where you just can't make any progress anymore. So you have to get the interaction, but you also, you know, you don't want to get too much, but I get the right amount here. And so I'm able to work most of the week, and then Fridays we have some fun. And, you know, that's what I look at Fridays as a fun time. The lightning talks and everything, you know.
Well, and that's very interesting because in the lightning talk, you listen things from people from everywhere. It's a lot of people that is the very first time that come here, and they explain about some project that nobody has heard before.
Oh, yeah. I advise people that if you come here for the first time, just do a lightning talk, you know. Don't worry it's going to be bad. They're always bad the first time. You know, just get up there and say who you are, explain what you're doing. And people will come up, talk to you, and you'll find relationships there that you just weren't expecting.
Yeah, that is very valuable. That's one of the values here in the Hacker Dojo. That say come here, don't feel afraid to talk to anybody. Ask as many times, and after several conversations, you may get home with a very pleasant surprise.
I think the first time I did a lightning talk, it was at the other location. And afterwards, I went around saying, hey, you know, we got to make that longer. 5 minutes just goes just like that. But now that I've been here and seen, if it did get longer, it would be a problem. It's great to have it just that 5 minutes. And it just, you know, that works.
Yeah, I agree, and don't feel afraid to be asking questions and generating some ideas to the people. And I've been hearing this several times, and I say, I have an idea that I want to see how the people react about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've already got patents, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, I do have patents on the mitigation technique, and I also have a patent on a device that can generate an atmospheric vortex.
That probably gets a lot of people who are interested in that. You know, and there's a lot of money in this.
Well, if they are interested, they're doing a good job of hiding, because I can't. Did you have a question back there?
Yeah, I was interested if you would be able to maybe explain a little bit more, like technically how it works.
Oh, I very much would be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think your question was, would I be interested in explaining it in more technical detail?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Well, we are almost wrapping this conversation, but you are open to keep that conversation going. And
I'm either, I don't know if I want to do it tonight. Maybe I'll do it tonight. But I've also been thinking of doing a meetup. You know, I don't know if that's something that anyone would be interested in. The problem is I did some meetups one time, and like one guy showed up, and he had some crazy notion that he wanted to ask me about. It's hard to find people who are interested in the physics of storms, the actual physics of storms. So,
but you are pointing into a very interesting idea, how to find the people that are interested, and that is one of the big challenge, and that
it really is.
In building the audience and looking for the people, that is where Hacker Dojo offer the space, offer the location, and the people help you in how you maybe are not into your mainstream, how to organize events and meetups, but the people here is eager to help you.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, that has been a very interesting. I really
thank you very much. It was an honor.
And thank you.
Yeah.